Obadiah 1 and 2. Behold, I have made thee small amongst the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. Call Halo Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors and salutations to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, the elder bishops. Shalom and Tawada for your diligency throughout these years. You're worthy of the title. Shalom to the 144,000, the governing body of the kingdom that are pushing this truth, this word, this very hour throughout the four corners of the globe, chatting down Babylon the Great. Through the spirit and power, Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Shalom to the innumerable one-third consisting of men, women, and children, the apostle spirits that were ordained to believe on the names of Yahweh, why Yahweh Shai, that is the actual names of the Heavenly Father and His Son in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, right? And those whose houses were blessed for salvation, all right? I'm Yazarala from the GMS Dallas camp coming back at you with a early morning. Quick lesson here, really quick, just through the spirit, all right? The name of this lesson is, and the beast shall hate the whore, all right? And that's taken from Revelations, the 17th chapter, right? And that's a book that a lot of these Christian churches and a lot of these so-called Christians, they are afraid to go into because one, they don't have a proper understanding, and two, people are usually afraid of things, not only afraid of things that they don't understand, but knowing that it is the end of all things, people choose not to speak on those things, right? Those matters. They'd rather debate about other topics like Gentiles being saved and whatnot. But as we know, what is that? Revelations 19 says the Spirit of the Lord, it's a spirit of prophecy. So we know that these Christians aren't ordained to Yahweh, Yahweh Shah. They're not men of the Lord. They're not prophets because they do not prophesy. Okay? That was only left or ordained unto the men of the Lord. Okay? So here we are in this latter end where you see prophecy happening right now in real time. All right? And the nations of the earth are finally starting to see who the real problem is in the earth. And that's Esau, Edom, being not only hated, but exposed as the devil. All right, AKA deceiver, because that's all the devil means. All right, and the hammer of the earth and the wicked, pursuant to Malachi 1 and 4. Okay, people are now starting to wake up, and that stronghold is rubbing off, and people are now starting to see and pinpoint through the actions of Esau, Edom, his nation, right, the warlike people they have always been. People are starting to be able to pinpoint who the real problem is in the earth. All right. Goes on to say, Obadiah, and this is Obadiah 1 and 3. The pride of thine heart has deceived thee, thou that dwelleth in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Right. And what is that? Sirach 11 and 5, I believe, that says, many kings have sat on the ground, but one who is not thought shall wear the crown. All right. So what's happening right now is Esau, Edom, all right, in the form of Trump, all right, this nation is being brought down to the ground. How? By Yahweh Shah, just as he's done in the ancient. All kings have been brought up and they've been brought down. Okay, so the Lord is bringing this man down, all right, because we see in this third woe, all right, Trump has wrote a check that his ass cannot cash, all right, via this Iranian war. All right, now here you have Iran, which is what I want to say roughly fifth the size of America, and yet it's whooping America's ass. Now that's spiritual, because when you go through the scriptures, you know, the Lord talks about how he uses the weak things of the world to confound the things that are wise or mighty. Now we know those scriptures are specifically talking about Israel being the nation not regarded, all right, being small and defenseless, but yet through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, we are taking down this man and his kingdom. But I say that to say because the Lord has always worked in smaller numbers or things that were considered weak. All right. When you look at David and Goliath, okay, David was small. He was ruddy as in youthful, okay, handsome looking, pretty boy, having nothing to do with his skin color. All right. For you bugged out Christians, okay, but he was not a warlike man. And here you had Goliath, who was a warlock. He was a warlord. You know, he had a spear that he carried. And I believe that the head of his spear alone weighed something roughly like 17 to 19 pounds. Okay, so this man was a giant, but yet the Lord used David to take him down. Okay, so that's just just showing you a parable how the Lord has always used something weak or smaller in the eyes of the flesh or the people, all right, to take down something mighty. And that's what we see happening right now with Iran. All right, as I said, Iran is pretty much a fifth the size of America, but look what it's doing to America. All right, all that is to show the power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, what is that? Job 3:10 says, let the weak say that I am strong. All right, so now you have these other nations who were at one point very weak, didn't have the military capability or the technology. But here we are in this latter in time where these people have developed this technology, developed mighty military defenses and weapons and whatnot. And now they're standing up, okay? And they're saying that we are strong now. And we're seeing that on the world stage right now, okay? Because basically America went over to Iran fresh off an easy victory with Cuba, thinking it would just rewind its strategy and prevail like he's always done, all right? Invading foreign lands and just taking whatever he wants, right? And that's always been the history of America. You read Malachi 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, right? When you're on your bed, you're at the top. You're in relaxation, okay? You're not, no one is a threat to you, all right? You're at the pinnacle, okay? So this war that we see happening is a part of a 5-year, a 5-year, 7-country strategy, all right? Basically to topple, 7 countries in 5 years, according to former NATO commander, I believe his name is Wesley Clark. All right, and it started with Iran, Syria, Lebanon, I believe it was, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off with Iran. All right, so this was their devised plan all along. Okay, so the Lord is saying here in Micah, Salakia, woe to them that devise iniquity, destruction unto you, that devise these wars, because all these wars are just staged. Okay, I was listening to the Apostle Ramlan late last night, and he was going into that beautiful lesson, talking about that. And so we see now that this man is at his last leg. Okay, it goes on to say, and when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. What's in the power of their hand? Well, Job 9:24, the world was given into the hands of the wicked. So they're able to practice whatever they want. They're able to do whatever they want. Okay, so this has always been the plan, right, to go out around the world, topple governance, okay, and do whatever it wants. It goes on to say here, Micah 2:2, they covet fields, all right, and we know fields when you read Matthew, the book of Matthew, field is the world. So field in this specific scripture is talking about lands and whatnot. So they covet or take lands by violence and houses, and they take them away. So they oppress a man and his house and every man in his heritage, right? And so that's what these damn devils really have been doing. They've been going throughout the earth, taking lands, resources, overthrowing governments, setting up military bases. I think it has, 700 or 800 military bases in over 70 countries. All right, so this man has spread his democracy, all right, and pretty much done whatever he wanted to do. But all this was really, the capability of this being done was through NATO, all right, because when you read the book of Revelation, to talk about the whore that sits on the beast, America is that whore that sits on top of the NATO countries, which is the military allies of America, which makes America the superpower. Okay, so it goes on to say, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family, okay, understanding again, because Malachi 1:4 says, the people who the Lord has indignation with the wicked. So understanding this man is talking about a family. Okay, I think that's Genesis, I think it's 23, goes into Esau is Edom. All right, talking about his descendants, they're warlike people. Okay, again, Micah 2:3. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family I devise an evil, which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this is the time of evil, right? We are in the time of evil. You're not going to walk away from this. All right, proud. All right, we see this family is fine. This family, as we know, is talking about the Esau Edom. All right, the Lord has now put them in a position where they are not going to be able to get out of, and all the world is seeing it. Okay, Ezekiel 35, what does that 6 says? Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. And that's what's happening. Blood and death are soon to follow you, Edomites, man. All right, you cannot, the Lord is a just power, and you cannot evade his justice. You can't not go out here in the earth and just do wickedness and think that the Lord isn't going to bring justice. That does not happen. The Lord is a power of balance, okay? All right, and the book of Daniel talks about how the America's pretty much been weighed in the balance. All right, and it's been found wanting, meaning lacking, without justice, without righteousness. All right, so this place must be judged. It was erected specifically for that purpose. All right, when you came here and you took the lands from my brothers and sisters, the Gadites, all right, so-called native Indians, all right, and we walk all around America, and little do you know, in every place that we live in and walk around, there ain't nothing but scattered dead bodies that we're walking over. But you think that these damn Edomites care? No. Okay? And you want to say, talking about America so great. What's so great about America? What has America done that's great? What has America done that's been positive, that's actually helped or forwarded humanity? I'll wait. It's been nothing but Revelation 6 talks about that red dragon, all right, that went throughout the earth, all right, to take peace from the earth. All right, they should kill one another, and it was given unto him a great sword. All right, warlike. All right, the sword literally just goes into a killing instrument, whether it's weaponry, missiles, philosophies, religions, okay, democracy, the USD, all these things bring upon death in one form or another when you have understanding. All right, so all this is happening right now is Bible prophecy in real time. All right, and this is why we always say you can't, and you're not going to find any of these Christians going into these things because they are not prophets. Okay, the true prophets are revealing, all right, the understanding and breaking down the scriptures. All right, and that's only done by the prophets of Yahweh, Yahushua. What does Amos 3:7 says? The world will do nothing. The Lord will do nothing but revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. Right, so the Lord does not make any moves at all until he lets his prophets know first. All right, and this is prophecy in real time. Now, this lesson isn't going to be too long here. I just kind of wanted to point out, you know, as you see all these things happening and what's going on with Trump. As a matter of fact, really quick, I just want to play this video. And this pretty much sparked me to, I saw this video the other morning, put it in the chat with brothers, and Rakatha Yahbashim Yahshua is giving me the time to be able to actually go into it now. So I can't give me 1 minute here.
Black history. So the so-called leader of the free world just got the United States of America, the so-called leader of the free world, just got locked out of Europe's airspace. France said no, Italy said no, Spain said no, Switzerland said no. In the span of 48 hours, 4 major Western nations looked at the United States of America and said, we don't want any part of what you're doing.
Right, the
you're
beast
on
is
your
hating
own,
the
Donald.
whore.
Let that satisfaction sink in for a second. The country that built NATO, the country that has projected military power across the globe for 7 decades, just got told by its own allies that it can't fly its planes over their countries. That is not a minor diplomatic spat.
Right.
That is not a little disagreement between friends. That is the sound of the post-World War II international order cracking in half right in front of our eyes. And I need you to understand something before we go any further here. This didn't happen because these countries suddenly hate America. This didn't happen because the French woke up one morning and decided they wanted to pick a fight. This happened because Donald Trump, the man sitting in the Oval Office, has spent his time in power systematically destroying every single relationship the United States has built over generations. He threatened NATO. He attacked allies. He cozied up to dictators. He launched a war in Iran without consulting anyone.
Right. Right. So as he says here, which I would argue because we just read it in the scriptures, says that it's not because these nations hate America. On the contrary, these nations cannot stand America. All right. The first precept I brought out was, thou art greatly despised. Y'all, you have become, the Lord has made you small among the heathen. All right. You are greatly despised. It is not a cool thing to be an American in these times. Americans are hated. Why? Because when you look at the track record, all right, of America and all the things that America's done, what we just went over, going through different countries throughout the world, all right, and toppling governments, you've basically been a bully. All right, you have all this military might, and you go and you just pretty much just punk these smaller countries that have no defenses, second, third world countries. You go over there and you just do whatever you want. All right, and the Lord has said he has had enough. So he's using this small country, all right, Iran, the fifth of the size of America, and it's whooping America's ass. And guess what? All these other nations are seeing it. You got Russia and China on the sidelines just waiting to get in, but Iran is like, nah, I'm good here right now. I'm good. So it's really it's putting work in on America, and all the nations are seeing it. It's a jaw-dropping moment, because as I said, the pride of this man thought he was going to go and do what he did in Cuba, right? As he did with Maduro and his wife. As the Lord gave him that easy victory, so he thought, I'm going to do the same over in Iran, and he ran up on an enemy that he underestimated. Okay, and a very small one at that. All right, and Iran is making an example out of America, man, on the world court with all the nations to see it. Okay, Iran has become a huge problem to the point now where Trump was at one time giving them a countdown, all right, before he says, what? I will blow Iran back to the Stone Ages. Well, what happened? Iran is still here, and now Iran is putting the chokehold. Has put the chokehold so hard on America. Now, America is now considering coming to the negotiation table, and they have to deal with the terms that Iran sets, and that's something that has never before happened. Okay, when you understand, world economies and nations and how they work. All right, America being that hammer of the old earth. All right, that superpower. No other nation has come and pretty much crippled America and brought America to his knees. And we're seeing that right now. But who's really doing that? Yahweh Shah is the one that's doing that. Okay? So I just wanted to give you a little, I'm going to go into Revelation 17 here just to touch on, all right, because NATO is in the scriptures nonetheless. All right, I'm going to start at Revelation 17 and 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are the 10 kings which has received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Right, so these 10 horns, all right, are talking about the NATO nations, all right, which originally started as 10 nations. I think it was Portugal and Spain were technically joined as one at one time, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so I know Portugal joined first, and then Spain joined, I think, around 81 or 82. All right, but nonetheless, it says 1 hour with the beast. Now, we know 2 Peter, what is that, 3 and 8 says, matter of fact, let me just grab it here. This is 2 Peter 3 and 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing. Here's the point, that one day with the Lord, okay, meaning one day in the heavens, okay, is as 1,000 years, and as 1,000 years 1 day. So let me explain that. 1 day in the heavenly realm is 1,000 years here on the earth. Okay, so let that sink in. All right, so let's do some math. All right, so 1 day being 24 hours. All right, so you divide 1,000 by 24, that's roughly what, 41.65 or 67. We'll just round it up to 42 years. So 1 hour with the Lord is 42 years with us. Okay, so now when you look at the history of NATO when it was erected, what was it, 1948 or 49, I believe it was. All right, so 1949, 42 years later, you fast forward, that's 1991. Okay, so what happened during that time in 1990 or 91? The Soviet Union collapsed, right? Because we know NATO was erected to be an opposition, all right, onto the Soviet Union and the USSR. Okay, but the Soviet Union collapsed in December 91. The Cold War ended. So what happened? That left NATO with no real enemy. And so during that time, 42 years later, NATO pretty much officially became the global superpower, right? Then creating the, North Atlantic Cooperation Council, the NACC, all right? And through that, what they did was pretty much open up dialogue with former USSR and Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc countries, all right? And beginning to work with these countries that NATO was once opposing. So basically, it shifted its focus from that to peacekeeping and global security. Okay, and that's what it's been, because that was erected to. But here we are in the latter end time where this man has turned wicked, and now he went from giving global security and peacekeeping to being the wicked and the hammer of the whole earth, man, and being a fucking tyrant and abusing that power. Right? So it goes on to say in Revelation 17 and 13, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, right? All these nations are going to come together under America, right? They should come together under that hegemony, All right, because after all these nations saw America drop bombs on what, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, right? The world nations became pretty much fearful of America's war capabilities. All right, and so through that, America had convinced the world that it would be safe if it used what, the USD. All right, it used for petroleum, aka which we know is the petrodollar. All right, and that's what's really pretty much allowed America to gain that power, because all trade with oil had to be purchased through USD. So though America or the USD really wasn't backed by anything, what made the USD powerful was the fact that they had to trade through that money in order to be able to, their economies to be able to flourish and function. Okay. And so through that also, that agreement would assure them, America's pretty much assuring them that they would be safe, right? And they would be stable, all right? And it came along with what, military protection, all right? And of all the nations within that region, okay? So what we see now in the latter end time, where America has not been protecting them and not been honoring its words, is Revelations 17 and 14. Then these shall make war with the Lamb and shall overcome them. Now, this is talking about World War III, keep in mind, all right? Because all these nations are going to come together. You can read about that in 2 Ezra, the 13th chapter, all right? All these nations are going to come together over there in the Levant region, Salakia, over there where in Saudi Arabia, where all the nations are being gathered right now, all right, for this World War III. They're all going to come together to fight Yahweh Shah when he returns, all right? It goes on to say, and the Lamb shall overcome them, and the Lord of lords and the kings of kings, and they that are with him are called chosen and faithful, right? Because the Lord is going to bring his army of heavenly angels, chariots, that's going to cover the skies of the world. There's one planet or one person on the earth that is not going to see Yahweh Shah and the angels when they cover the skies. And it's going to bring great dread and fear. As the scripture says, men's hearts are going to be failing for the things that they see. When the Lord enters into this realm with a chariot that covers the entire sky, where you cannot see the sun, you cannot see the clouds. All you see is a massive chariot. And that's what Esau and these nations are going to have to deal with. Okay? It goes on to say, here's the point. And the 10 horns which thou sawest, NATO, upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So we see this is what's happening right now. All these NATO countries are going to turn on America. This is happening in real time as we speak. All right. NATO is going to shoot nuclear missiles on America. All right. As Trump continues to create enemies with the NATO nations, putting sanctions on its own allies, all right, threatening war, all right, starting wars without the consent of NATO, all right, which makes America powerful in the first place, like I just mentioned, right? So America's decisions and erratic behavior has pretty much been crippling the NATO nations, and it's becoming a big problem in the earth, all right? America's not honored their word to protect these nations, all right, during their time of turmoil, all right? It's basically going throughout the earth and does whatever it wants, all right? So finally, all of these nations are starting to see, as I said, who the real problem is in the earth. Isaiah 46, Salakia, Isaiah 14 and 6. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruleth the nations in anger. This is America. So as we once read that, NATO was put together to be a peacekeeping, all right, union, all right, to bring stability, okay? But it's turned from that to being what? A hammer of the whole earth, wielding this hammer with continual strokes, sanctions, all right, being nothing but a terror and a tyrant in the earth. He that smote the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindered, right? So as I said, America went throughout the earth and smote these nations with a wrath, sanctions, democracy. Now that America is getting persecuted, meaning in a hostile manner, when you go into that word persecution, NATO's not coming to America's side, all right? America is pretty much isolated itself along with Israel. All right, we know what that's talking about, because what that Psalms 50 and 5 says that the least of the flock, meaning the small hats, shall draw them out. Well, what's that mean? Meaning drawing America out into this third World War. So you have to understand, Iran was no threat to Israel, okay? Salakia, Iran was no threat to America, should I say, but it was Israel. All right, because of the warlike, bloodthirsty devils that these small hats are, it's pretty much drawn America out into a war that we had nothing to do with. All right? Because of the actions of Israel. Okay? And this is exactly what's happening right now in real time. And because of that, all right, because again, understand this is all Bible prophecy. This is all meant to happen. It's all written to happen. We're reading it. This is the Lord's movie. Okay? So as America and all these nations are being brought out into this World War III, matter of fact, because I just roughly paraphrased, but I'm going to grab the actual scripture here so you can see. Because it's heavy. Me and one of the elders were talking last night, man. And sometimes, we read this Bible and it's like, it's amazing. It's heavy, man. It'll really kind of blow your mind. You're sitting here and you're reading words out of a book that's explaining to you how the world is really going to end. And man, that's heavy when you really, really look at it and think about it. These are just words in the book, but of course, they're just not words. But when you look at it, just, in a carnal sense, this is a book. But as you're reading it, you're reading what's happening right now and what's getting ready to happen. Man, the Lord is cold. You understand? So I just want to add that. But here, this is Psalms 50 and 5. So we see the end game. Salakia, not Psalms 50 and 5. What is it? Psalms 148. I'm glad I pulled it up because I actually quoted the wrong verse. Hold on. Jeremiah 50 and 45. I always get those two mixed up. Salakia. All right. Psalms 50 and 5 is talking about who the saints are. So Salakia for that. All right. Jeremiah 50 and 45 is what I meant to say. All right. Matter of fact, I'm going to just go ahead and get it. I'm going to read it properly here. It's Jeremiah 50 and 45. And it reads, therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord. So understanding what's happening right now is the counsel of the Lord. Okay? That he has taken against Babylon the Great, America, and his purpose. All right? All right, this is what he has proposed. All right? It says that he has proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. All right? And the modern day Chaldeans are the international bankers. Okay? Here's the point. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. So surely Israel shall draw America out into this third world war. And that's what's happening right now, along with all the other nations. But here's the point. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Okay? So what is that saying? Surely America is going to be destroyed along with Israel. The only difference is Israel is going to be rebuilt back up. America is not. It's going to be a desolate wasteland, the biggest desert here on the earth. Okay, so as all you maggers that, sat there and you cheered Trump on and every time, there was, war, going on, all Americans were for it. When you watch that video with Wesley Clark and he talks about the 7 countries and 5-year plan, and he's talking about it, man, it's crazy. Matter of fact, Babu Shah Salaki, I'm just going to get it because I was watching it last night and just kind of like, damn, man, this is the mindset of a devil, though. Okay, let me just show you this real quick.
Going to war with Iraq, why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq.
Right. He
said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments.
See?
And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail.
Woo! And that's Bible prophecy. So our scripture says, how's the hammer of the whole earth become cut asunder? So that's what NATO and America has been. All right, chiefly America has been a hammer of the old earth. But you hear what he said in the beginning of the video. He said, we're going to war, and you heard all them Edomites laughing. They thought it was cute. Here you are going throughout the world, starting wars with different countries, toppling their governments, stealing their resources, killing these innocent people, okay, that had nothing, that were no threat to America, and you guys are just laughing about it. That's why I brought out the scripture, since thou hast not hated blood, even blood is going to pursue you, because these people think it's a joke to just go into these smaller countries and just do whatever you want, rape, rob them, and slaughter them. Okay, and the funny thing is, here we are in this latter end time, and we talk about what happened to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Indians during the time of slavery, all right, the Trail of Tears, and everything that happened here, and there's a disconnect emotionally, All right, because it happened such a long time and all. Yeah. But now that America is starting to feel that same brunt because Esau is now turning, there's been a great divide. And now America's starting to feel the heat. Okay, now you want sympathy. Now you want to have some kind of understanding now. No. Okay, where were your cries? Where were your sympathy when we were going through it? Okay, so now America has isolated itself along with Israel. Okay, but again, like I said, this is all Bible prophecy because we just read what's going to happen in the end. All right, last precept I want to grab here. Revelation 17 and 17. For Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. The hearts meaning La'ab, their mind. Putting in whose hearts? The minds of the NATO nations. All right, to all come together under the American hegemony. Goes on to say, and to agree, right, and to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua be fulfilled. You see that? So the words of the Lord's will is being fulfilled right now. He's put it in the minds of the NATO nations to come under America, all right, to create that beast system, to be a tyrant throughout the earth, all right, to do its will, only at the end, what? To be destroyed, all right? As I said, this is the Lord's movie, all right? And as the scripture says, the minds of the kings are in the hands of the Lord, roughly paraphrasing, all right? He turneth it whichever way he will. All right, so as I said, these NATO nations have come under the hegemony of America, spearheaded by America, only to do the will. All right, and what is the will of the Lord? Ultimately, to destroy America. All right, this is not going to end good. This war that's happening right now, just for you Americans out here, is not going to go. It's going to, it's going to end with America because the soils of America are getting ready to be brought into this war. That's what most people don't understand. Okay, missiles are going to be shot here. That's how this thing that's starting right now, we're reading about on news every day, it's going to end with America being in thermonuclear fire. All right? So yeah, I just want to do a quick lesson. Abarakazah. It was edifying unto those who were meant to receive it. And I want to say, call Holo Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash, double honors and salutations unto the elders, apostles of Great Millstone. Let's keep pushing, Akim. All right, we almost out of here. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai. Shalom.